Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to Guide My Career. This is Siva from Department of Meteorology and Oceanography, Andhra University. In this video, I just want to give you a small introduction to the clouds. So for that, what I did is I just mentioned some of questions in a particular order to give a small introduction to the clouds. Like what is a cloud? How does it form? What are cloud condensation nuclei? When does it form? Like this. So coming to the first question. What is a cloud? If somebody asks us what is a cloud, most of us will say that cloud is nothing but a gas which is made up of water vapor, right? So some of will say that cloud is nothing but accumulation of tiny droplets of water or ice crystals. But very few people only will say that a cloud is accumulation of or a collection of tiny droplets of water or ice crystals that settle on the dust particles in the atmosphere. Okay. But don't get worried, I'm very sure by the end of this video you will get to know why did we define the definition of the cloud like this. Okay, and coming to the second one, this is the formation of cloud, like how does a cloud form. Okay, and the cloud formation here I just defined in a one by one step process. So in first step, heating of the ground by the insolation, means as the incoming solar radiation coming from the sun and falling on the ground, as this process continues, over a time the ground becomes hot. So once the ground is heated, it start heating the whatever air which is nearby. Means once the air which is near to the ground is heated, this heated air parcels start rising. So as this air parcel rising from the ground, the temperature of this air parcel decreases and volume of this increases as this rising from the ground to upper level. Okay, so as this air parcel rising from the upper levels, at one point of temperature, whatever water vapor in this air parcel start condense. Okay, that does mean at particular temperature, whatever water vapor inside this air parcel start changing their state from the gas to liquid. That is what we call as a dew. Okay, that temperature basically we call it as a dew point temperature. The dew point temperature is nothing but a temperature at which a dew begins to form. Okay, and that does mean at which temperature gaseous water vapor changes from gas to liquid. Okay, at that temperature will be called as dew point temperature. At that height will be called as a cloud condensation level. Because why? At particular height the cloud is formed by the process of condensation. That's why you name it as a cloud condensation level. Okay, up to now most of the people would know how this process is happening. Okay, and then what will happen once the formation of the tiny droplets of water or ice crystals are formed? What will happen next? So after the formation of these tiny droplets of water or ice crystals, all these tiny droplets of water or ice crystals stick together to one particles like dust, salt, smoke, which float always in the atmosphere, releasing from the different sources. So to understand this, before understanding this, I will say one example to understand to understand this process very clearly. I will say one example that see, while taking a glass of water from the refrigerator, you can find some water droplets, right? So when you take some glass of water from your refrigerator, you can find some water droplets on the outside of the glass, right? So how did they form? They form generally they form due to the process of condensation due to the temperature difference in and around the glass. So and where did they stay? They stick to the outside wall of the glass, right? So in this example, the outside wall of the glass acted as a platform to hold that whatever water vapor, water droplets formed by the process of condensation. Okay. Similarly, in the atmosphere, who are those? Who are the responsible to stick that tiny droplets of water or ice crystals formed by the condensation? Those are nothing but aerosols. Aerosols are nothing but dust particles, salt, smoke, soot. All these comes under the dust particles, on which these condensed tiny droplets of water or ice crystals stick to. Okay. This is how the tiny droplets are stick to the surface of dust particles, smoke, soot, all this. So as this process continues, as the water vapor condenses, all the tiny droplets of water or ice crystals start sticking to the dust particles, and as this process continues, over a time one cloud droplet form, like when the enough water condenses around the surface of that particles like salt, smoke, dust, at one point, at one point of time, a cloud droplet is formed. Once the cloud droplet is formed, this keep on moving. Keep on moving. When more than 2-3 cloud droplets are clubbed together, then one huge cloud droplet will form, that what we call as rain droplet. Okay, so you can understand very clearly as you see this image. You can understand very clearly. Okay, so this is the gaseous water vapor. When it starts condensing, it changes its state from gas to liquid. Once it's converting into tiny droplets of water or ice crystal, it starts sticking to the surface of the dust particle. So as this process continues, enough water vapor condenses onto the surface, then a cloud droplet will form. Once the cloud droplet is formed, then when the more number of cloud droplets club together, then huge cloud droplet will form, that what we call as a rain droplet. Okay, this is how generally, and when this rain droplet have a sufficient weight to get sufficient falling velocity, then automatically it will form. It will fall down from the sky in the form of rain due to the Earth's gravity. Okay, this is how generally a cloud form and a precipitation occurs. Okay. And coming to the next, what are cloud condensation nuclei and aerosol? Do they same exactly? And why do we call aerosols also as the cloud condensation nuclei? Because these aerosols are acting. These aerosols are involving in the process of cloud droplet and acting as a center of the cloud droplet, that what we call as a nuclei. See, if you see in this image, you can say that aerosol being as a center of the cloud droplet, that's why it's calling as nuclei. And this entire process is named as the the cloud droplet formation, cloud droplet formed by the process of condensation. That's why we call it as cloud condensation nuclei. So this story, everything we know. Once the cloud droplet is formed, then more number of cloud droplet club together and then form a huge cloud droplet, and it will be called as rain droplet. That is as we discussed before only. And coming to the next one, when does a cloud form? When do generally clouds form? At what situation a cloud form? Cloud form only when the air is saturated. Okay. When the air is saturation means when air has sufficiently filled with the water vapor, gaseous water vapor, then it is said to be saturated. It cannot hold any more water. Okay, any more water vapor. Sorry. So this saturation can be happen in two ways generally. So when the amount of water inside the air is increased, then the air is said to be saturated. And when the temperature of the air parcel is cooled to its dew point, then also it is said to be saturated. So in these two ways, air can be saturated, and then once the air is saturated, then it start condensing. Okay, this is how cloud form and start condensing. And what is the state of the cloud? Most of the people might get a doubt in their minds while studying about the cloud in detail, that why do we call it as a state of cloud as simply a gas, while it is how does a cloud form generally? How does a cloud form means why we are calling a state of the cloud as simply a gas, while it is forming after the changing the gaseous, after changing the phase from gaseous to liquid. Actually cloud form only when the gaseous water vapor changes from gas to liquid, by the process of condensation, right? Condensation means changing the state from gas to liquid. Okay, then why we are calling then only the cloud will form. Then why we are calling the state of cloud simply a gas instead of a liquid or a solid? Because once by the process of condensation, once the cloud tiny droplets of water or ice crystals are formed, these are very, very tiny in size. They can't fall down from the earth. They can't fall down from the sky due to the influence of gravity, because that much tiny they are in size. Okay, that's why we calling it as simply a gas. Okay, that much tiny they are. I mean that much lightweight they are. That's why it won't fall down to the earth from the sky due to the influence of gravity. Okay, and if you speak strictly the state of cloud, we can say that condensed watery vapor. Okay, but mostly we say that state of the cloud is a gas. Okay, just now I told why don't the cloud fall from the sky due to the earth's gravity even though they have tons of water in it. Okay, because see, if you see this image, when you look at the cloud from the ground, it appears as a huge, but when you zoom in the cloud, it appears somewhat look like, see, they are very tiny droplets of water inside the cloud. So, and they present at they almost situated like very spreading in nature. Okay, they won't be accumulated at one point, they will spread out, and they are very tiny in size. So because of their size, because of their tiny size, they won't be affected by the influence of gravity. Means because of their tiny size, they won't have that much appreciable falling velocity to fall down from the sky to the earth. And also there is another factor which supports, I mean which makes these clouds float aloft in the atmosphere. That's what we call as upward pressure gradient force. Means generally there is upward pressure gradient force which always act upward, because as we go from the ground to upper levels, the pressure decreases, then automatically pressure always acts from the high pressure to low pressure. That's what we call as a upward pressure gradient force. So as this, because of the presence of this force, these tiny droplets of a cloud keep on floating in the atmosphere without falling from the sky. These are the two main reasons to not fall cloud from the sky. Okay, and coming to the why are some clouds appears white in color and some are gray in color. And to understand this, I can say an example. I mean, most of we would know that what was the color of sky? Simply a blue. Why is it so? Most of us say that is more scattering of the blue light compared to the rest of colors in the visible portion. We have generally 7 colors: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, right? Out of all those colors, blue light scatters more, right? That's why we are able to see the blue color of the sky is a blue. But in case of cloud, generally smaller particles scatters shorter wavelengths, and bigger particles scatters higher wavelengths. Okay, but when compared to the sizes of both visible wavelengths and as well as the particles inside the cloud droplets, I mean generally the size of the visible wavelengths are generally less than that the size of the particles inside the cloud. Okay, that does mean there are bigger particles in the cloud compared to the, I mean, size of the cloud droplet, size of the particles in the cloud is very high compared to the size of the wavelengths of visible portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so because of their bigger size of the particles in the cloud, they scatter entire the visible portion, entire the visible wavelengths more or less uniformly. Okay, means to understand this, I can say an example. For suppose if you take all 7 colors equally amount, if you take all 7 colors, if you take equal amount of all 7 colors and club it and mix it in a one vessel, you will get automatically a white color, right? For suppose other than that, if you take one of color is very high and rest of color are very small, then what do you get? Which color did you take? Which color did you take as a high? Then that color only shows ultimately. For suppose if you take a blue color as 1 kg and rest of colors are 10 ml, 10 ml, 10 milligrams, 10 milligrams. Then what will happen? Mostly after mixing all those colors, mostly you will get more or less blue color only, because you have taken you have taken high amount of the blue color. But if you take equal amount of all colors in one vessel and start mixing, then you will get white color only. So in the cloud, particles are doing the same process like this. Like they scatters all visible wavelengths more or less uniformly. That's why cloud appears as a white in color. But what about the basis of the color, like grain color? They look grain color. But why they look grain color base of the cloud? Because when the cloud thickness is increased, then automatically you will see a gray basis of cloud, like because of the process of scattering only. When the thickness of the cloud increased, then automatically more water vapor, more water drop, I mean more cloud particles, the number of the cloud particles will also get increased. That does mean scattering also will get increased. So when the thickness of the cloud increased, the scattering and number of the particles which scatter the light which is penetrating to the cloud also will get increased. When there is a huge scattering, then there is no chance to light enter into the bottom of the cloud. Then we can't see any more light to see bottom. Then automatically bottom looks more or less gray or black in color. Okay, this is how clouds mostly appear white in color and sometimes gray in color, mostly before raining. And this is all about the basic introduction to the clouds. Hope you understand and enjoy. Thank you.